Jasmine Crockett's bombshell on live television was more than a soundbite. It was a seismic event that shifted the ground beneath an already turbulent political landscape. When she took the stage, there was already an expectation that her words would be sharp, fiery, and unrelenting, because that has always been her style. She is not someone who holds back when the stakes are high. Yet, few anticipated just how forceful, precise, and deeply impactful her remarks would be in the moment they were delivered. With millions watching, she not only challenged the Trump narrative but also disrupted the carefully managed image that Donald Trump and Ivanka Trump have tried to maintain in the public eye. The strength of Crockett's delivery lay in her ability to take complicated political issues and translate them into blunt truths that resonated immediately with viewers who had grown weary of spin, excuses, and carefully polished speeches. Her words were raw, but they were also calculated, each statement designed to cut through layers of distraction that often dominate political discourse. At the core of her bombshell was the power of authenticity. Crockett stood on live television and spoke without hesitation, speaking to issues that many have whispered about but few have dared to confront so openly in front of a national audience. The effect was electrifying because audiences could feel that her passion was not rehearsed, not fabricated for applause lines, but rooted in a genuine belief that the public deserves to hear the unvarnished truth. In politics, where so much is manufactured and staged, this authenticity is rare, and it explains why her remarks instantly grabbed attention. She wasn't just making noise, she was holding up a mirror and forcing everyone, including Trump and Ivanka, to see themselves as the public now sees them after her words reverberated across screens. Her choice of timing also amplified the impact. The moment was already charged with tension, as questions about Trump's influence, Ivanka's role, and the future of their political ambitions have dominated conversations. To strike at that very moment meant Crockett's comments did not land in isolation, they landed in the middle of an already swirling storm of speculation and criticism. The precision of her words acted like fuel, igniting debates across cable news panels, social media platforms, and household conversations. It became impossible to ignore, and that in itself is a victory for someone seeking to highlight truths that have been overlooked or deliberately buried under the weight of political maneuvering. The way she delivered her points also spoke volumes. Her tone carried both indignation and clarity, weaving together facts, observations, and moral conviction. Unlike many politicians who bury their audience in jargon, Crockett used plain language that made her message accessible and relatable. She framed her arguments in a way that ordinary viewers could understand. Without needing a policy degree, which allowed her words to cut across demographics and resonate with people far beyond the traditional political junkie crowd. This is what gave her bombshell such viral potential. People could share it, repeat it, and use it as a rallying cry without needing to unpack layers of complexity. It was direct, simple, and undeniable. But what truly made her bombshell so explosive was the way it directly confronted the myth of invincibility that Trump and Ivanka have built around themselves. For years, Donald Trump has thrived on projecting dominance, control, and a refusal to be shaken by critics, while Ivanka has cultivated an image of composure and grace amidst chaos. Crockett's words, however, pierced both facades in real time. By pulling Ivanka into the conversation, she forced the public to see the Trump dynasty not as untouchable figures but as individuals vulnerable to scrutiny, accountability, and critique. For Ivanka especially, who often avoids being dragged into direct conflict, this was a rare moment of exposure where the protective walls around her image could not hold. The reaction from Trump and Ivanka only reinforced the weight of Crockett's words. Trump's fiery and combative response, marked by his usual defiance, was proof that the comments hit their mark. Ivanka's unease, whether visible or described in commentary afterward, showed that the bombshell had unsettled even those who usually remain calm under fire. Their inability to brush off or dismiss Crockett's remarks revealed just how deeply her words had penetrated the narrative they had worked so hard to control. For Crockett, this was a victory not just in terms of delivering a memorable line, but in seizing control of the conversation and putting her perspective at the forefront of political debate. Another dimension to consider is the cultural resonance of this moment. American politics has always thrived on dramatic clashes, from historic debates to fiery speeches that capture the mood of the nation. Crockett's Bombshell falls squarely into that tradition, standing out not just because of its content but because of the context in which it was delivered. This wasn't a closed-door remark leaked to the press, nor was it a carefully edited campaign ad. It was live, unfiltered, and impossible to spin away in the moment. That kind of raw exposure carries a unique power in today's media environment, where people are increasingly skeptical of polished narratives. It created a sense of witnessing history unfold, a collective gasp shared across living rooms and social media feeds. The long-term effects of this moment may extend far beyond the initial shock. In politics, moments like these become rallying points. They inspire supporters, energize movements, and shift public opinion in subtle but lasting ways. Crockett's Bombshell will likely be replayed, quoted, and analyzed for weeks, giving her message a life far beyond the original broadcast. It is a reminder that in the age of instant media, one powerful moment can outweigh weeks of speeches and press releases. Crockett understood this dynamic, and her ability to leverage it shows a keen awareness of how political communication works in the 21st century. Her bombshell also challenges the idea that Trump and Ivanka can control every narrative. For years, the Trump family has mastered the art of dominating news cycles, often drowning out critics by sheer force of presence. But in this case, it was Crockett who dictated the terms of the conversation, leaving Trump and Ivanka in reactive positions. That reversal of roles is significant because it shows that their grip on public attention is not unbreakable. It proves that a determined and skillful opponent, armed with sharp words and perfect timing, can disrupt even the most powerful political machinery. It also sets a precedent for others who may follow Crockett's lead in refusing to be intimidated by the Trump brand. What makes this especially impactful is how it resonates with people who feel disillusioned by politics as usual. Many Americans have grown frustrated with the endless cycle of accusations, counter-accusations, and staged performances that dominate political discourse. Crockett's Bombshell cut through that fatigue by offering a moment of raw, undeniable confrontation. It spoke to the hunger for authenticity, accountability, and someone willing to challenge powerful figures without fear. That is why her words continue to echo long after the broadcast ended, reminding everyone that sometimes, the truth spoken boldly in the right moment can shake even the most unshakable. When Jasmine Crockett dropped her bombshell on live television, the nation's eyes immediately turned to Donald Trump and Ivanka Trump, waiting to see how they would respond. What unfolded in those tense moments was a raw and unfiltered glimpse into the dynamics of the Trump family under pressure. Trump, known for his bombastic personality and his tendency to fight back with aggression whenever challenged, reacted exactly as many expected, fiery, combative, and unwilling to let a single slight pass unanswered. His words came rapid and forceful, laced with the familiar defiance that has defined his political persona. He leaned into the performance, raising his voice, gesturing wildly, and attempting to dominate the conversation in the way he has done for years. Yet in this particular moment, there was a sense that his reaction was less about strategy and more about impulse, that Crockett's comments had struck a nerve deeper than usual, and that his instinct was to lash out rather than to control the narrative. Ivanka, on the other hand, represented the polar opposite reaction, and this contrast only made the scene more striking. Long positioned as the polished, carefully managed face of the Trump dynasty, she usually avoids messy confrontations, preferring instead to project calm, poise, and a sense of refinement that shields her from the harshest political storms. Yet when Crockett's words pulled her into the fire, her composed facade showed cracks. Observers noted the subtle shifts in her expression, the tension in her body language, and the rare glimpse of discomfort that she could not entirely hide. While she did not respond with the same verbal ferocity as her father, the very fact that she was visibly shaken spoke volumes. For someone who has mastered the art of staying above the fray, being forced into the center of such an explosive moment revealed vulnerabilities that many had never seen from her before. The duality of their responses highlighted the very different roles Trump and Ivanka play in the political landscape. Trump thrives on chaos, often using it as a weapon to exhaust his opponents and rally his base, while Ivanka has sought to serve as the softer, more relatable counterbalance, the one who can appeal to moderate voters and present the family as more palatable to those turned off by Trump's aggression. Crockett's remarks disrupted both strategies simultaneously. By provoking Trump into a visible outburst, she reinforced the image of him as reactionary and easily rattled. By unsettling Ivanka, she undermined the carefully curated image of serenity and grace that has been central to her brand. In one stroke, Crockett managed to expose the weaknesses in both father and daughter's personas, forcing them into reactions that stripped away layers of control they usually rely on. Trump's reaction also demonstrated the limits of his familiar playbook. For years, he has relied on the tactic of going on the offensive whenever challenged, turning criticism into an opportunity to reassert dominance. But in this case, Crockett's remarks had already captivated the public and shifted the narrative, making it harder for his fiery pushback to reclaim control. His anger, instead of intimidating or silencing, only drew more attention to the fact that Crockett had touched a nerve. It created the perception that she had landed a blow that mattered, that his inability to let it pass without an eruption was itself evidence of the power of her words. Rather than extinguishing the fire, his response fanned it, ensuring that the exchange would dominate headlines and conversation far longer than it might have otherwise. Ivanka's reaction, though far more subdued, may have been even more consequential in the eyes of the public. Unlike her father, who has weathered countless controversies and thrives in the storm, Ivanka's brand depends on the perception of control, elegance, and a sense of being untouchable by the ugliness of politics. Crockett's ability to rattle her, even briefly, punctured that image. Viewers saw a side of Ivanka rarely exposed, a side that seemed less confident, less composed, and more vulnerable. This mattered because Ivanka has long been considered the Trump most capable of appealing to audiences outside of her father's loyal base. She has been positioned as a bridge, someone who could temper the rough edges of Trumpism and make it more acceptable to skeptical voters. For that image to be shaken on live television was a moment of symbolic significance that went beyond the immediate exchange. The father-daughter dynamic also came under scrutiny in the aftermath of their reactions. Trump's tendency to dominate every room, every conversation, and every conflict often leaves little space for others to navigate. In this moment, his fiery outburst overshadowed Ivanka's more restrained discomfort, but together, their responses painted a picture of a family under pressure, struggling to contain a narrative that had slipped out of their control. The juxtaposition of Trump's loud defensiveness with Ivanka's quiet unease revealed a contrast that has always existed but rarely been exposed so clearly in front of a national audience. It highlighted not just their individual reactions, but also the complicated balance they try to maintain as political partners and family members operating in the unforgiving spotlight. The reactions also underscored how fragile carefully constructed political images can be when confronted with raw, unscripted moments. For years, Trump and Ivanka have worked to shape public perception, using rallies, interviews, and orchestrated appearances to craft the story they want people to believe. Yet in this moment, Crockett's words cut through all of that, forcing them to react in real time without the benefit of scripting or spin. What the public saw was not the controlled version of Trump and Ivanka they were meant to see, but the unfiltered reality of how they handle direct confrontation. For Trump, that meant bluster and rage. For Ivanka, that meant a rare show of discomfort. And for the audience, that contrast provided more insight into who they truly are than months of carefully staged appearances ever could. This moment matters not only for what it revealed about Trump and Ivanka, but also for what it says about the shifting balance of power in political discourse. When a single bombshell from a rising political figure can force such raw reactions from two of the most high-profile figures in American politics, it shows that the old methods of control and dominance are not as effective as they once were. The spectacle of Trump and Ivanka going nuts in different ways demonstrated that they are not untouchable, that even the most powerful political brands can be shaken when confronted by the right words at the right time. It created a narrative that they were no longer dictating the terms of engagement, but reacting to someone else's boldness, and that shift was visible to everyone watching. The impact of Jasmine Crockett's live television Bombshell on politics and public opinion cannot be understated, because moments like these don't just generate headlines for a single news cycle. They alter the way people think, the way narratives are shaped, and the way political battles are fought moving forward. In an era where information spreads in seconds and social media amplifies every dramatic confrontation, a moment that cuts through the noise can carry far more influence than weeks of policy speeches or carefully managed campaign events. Crockett's ability to deliver her remarks in such a direct, unfiltered, and explosive way created a ripple effect that quickly turned into waves across political circles, newsrooms, and households. What she did was not only confront Donald Trump and Ivanka Trump in real time but also give the public something they could latch onto, analyze, and debate long after the cameras stopped rolling. One of the most immediate impacts was the way her remarks shifted the conversation. Before her intervention, discussions around Trump and Ivanka were often shaped by their ability to control the narrative, to frame themselves as either the victims of constant scrutiny or the architects of a political movement too powerful to be derailed. Crockett flipped that script in an instant. By putting them on the defensive, she turned them from the storytellers into the subjects of someone else's story, and that is a powerful reversal. The impact of this was clear in the media coverage that followed. Instead of Trump dominating the airwaves with his usual talking points, the focus was on Crockett's words, the reaction they sparked, and what those reactions revealed about the vulnerability of the Trump dynasty. For the public, the bombshell provided something that has become increasingly rare in modern politics, an unscripted moment that felt real. Voters across the spectrum have grown weary of political theater, where speeches are rehearsed, statements are carefully polished, and confrontations are often staged for effect. Crockett's remarks, however, carried a raw authenticity that audiences could feel. This matters because authenticity has become one of the most valuable currencies in politics today. People want to believe that the person speaking to them actually means what they say, and that they are willing to take risks in order to speak the truth. Crockett's willingness to call out Trump and Ivanka so boldly, on live television, created the impression that she was willing to challenge power directly, and that impression can linger in the minds of viewers far longer than a standard political exchange. Another important impact lies in the way moments like this reshape voter perception. For Trump loyalists, the exchange may have been framed as yet another attack from an opponent trying to tear him down, reinforcing their sense of grievance and fueling their support. But for undecided voters or those growing weary of the constant drama surrounding the Trump family, the sight of Trump lashing out and Ivanka looking unsettled may have sparked doubt about their ability to lead or remain composed under pressure. Political images are fragile, and Crockett's bombshell cracked open weaknesses that opponents can build upon. Even those who do not follow politics closely often remember moments that feel shocking, dramatic, or revealing, and this was one such moment. The public perception of Trump as unflappable and Ivanka as unshakable took a hit, and once those cracks appear, they are difficult to repair. The bombshell also energized conversations within political movements themselves. For Crockett supporters and for those who opposed Trump, the exchange served as a rallying point. It became proof that the Trump narrative could be challenged, that even a figure as dominating as Donald Trump could be rattled, and that Ivanka's image of composure could be disrupted. This kind of energy is invaluable in politics, because it galvanizes people who might otherwise feel powerless against such a well-known family brand. It offers momentum to those who want to keep pressing forward, reminding them that one sharp, bold moment can have outsized influence. The viral nature of Crockett's remarks amplified this effect, spreading clips and commentary across social platforms where they could reach millions of people outside the traditional political audience. In terms of broader politics, the exchange underscored how the media environment has transformed the way influence is measured. Traditional campaign strategies focus on fundraising, ground operations, and policy platforms, all of which remain important, but in the digital age, single moments of high drama can outweigh months of careful planning. Crockett's bombshell proved that live television still holds immense power in shaping political discourse, because the immediacy of seeing someone confront power directly creates a sense of shared experience among viewers. People talk about it at work, share clips online, and debate it with friends, extending the life of the moment far beyond the initial broadcast. In this way, Crockett not only made headlines, she created a cultural event that entered public consciousness. There is also the question of how this moment will influence future political battles. Politicians watching the exchange will take note of how impactful a well-timed, bold statement can be, and some will likely attempt to replicate Crockett's approach. This doesn't mean every confrontation will have the same effect, but it does suggest that authenticity, courage, and timing are becoming the most potent weapons in political communication. For Trump and Ivanka, the moment will serve as a reminder that their control of the narrative is not guaranteed, that opponents who know how to speak directly to the public can destabilize even the most carefully managed political brands. That knowledge may shape how they approach future appearances, debates, and interviews, knowing that another Crockett-like figure could deliver a moment that goes viral and shifts public opinion yet again. The larger significance lies in how this moment reflects the shifting expectations of the public. People are no longer satisfied with vague platitudes or stage-managed performances. They want to see real emotion, real conflict, and real accountability, and Crockett gave them all three in one explosive exchange. The impact on public opinion, therefore, extends beyond Trump and Ivanka. It speaks to a hunger in the electorate for leaders who are unafraid to call out power and who can do so in a way that feels genuine and unfiltered. This shift is shaping the political landscape in profound ways, influencing not only how voters respond to individual figures but also how they define what leadership should look like in the first place. Ultimately, Crockett's bombshell did more than expose Trump and Ivanka to public scrutiny. It created a moment of political clarity that people will remember. It showed that even the most dominant political figures can be unsettled, that narratives can be disrupted in an instant, and that public opinion can be swayed not just by long campaigns but by a single act of boldness broadcast live to millions. It proved that the political stage remains unpredictable, that the truth still carries power when spoken with courage, and that in the right moment, one voice can change the entire direction of the conversation.